Okay. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Now, as you know, I have a course online about mastering masculinity, which you can join by just checking on my website, and you can see that, and it will have everything men need to know about approaching women and, understanding women. But what I wanted to do is do a video on all the secrets that I've learned about men with my work in this environment. So I'm kind of being on the women's team today. I'm going to bat for the women's team and just give them all the secrets that I've learned about men. Now, the first one that every girl kind of wants to know is why men cheat, or the cheating part. Now, in my personal experience of why men cheat on their partners and so on and so forth, what happens is there's three main reasons that they give, but the underlying reason is a different one. Okay, so the main reason that they give me is there's a lack of intimacy. You're just not sleeping with each other. There's a lack of attraction. You're not attracted to him, or he's not attracted to you. Or there is a lack of appreciation. They don't feel appreciated. Those are the three reasons men give. But the underlying reason is there's a lack of communication between partners. So what I mean by that is some men will have wives that have not slept with them in months. Months, weeks, years, whatever. After kids, they sleep in separate rooms. So they say, oh, well, there's a lack of intimacy and that's why I had an affair. But I will say, why didn't you communicate this? Why did you allow this for so long? Why did you just allow you living in separate rooms because you have a child for 3 years and she wanted to sleep with a child for all that time? Why did you allow that? And they say, oh, I don't know. So it's lack of communication, really. Or they'll say, I'm not attracted to my wife anymore. She's gained a lot of weight. She doesn't take care of her appearance. She doesn't even, shave her legs anymore, blah, blah. And I'll say, did you communicate that? Oh, no, I feel bad saying it. Well, then, of course, she's not going to care. That's your own fault. Then why did you not communicate that? And the appreciation, what happens is they feel like they've done a lot. They may have bent over backwards for a couple of years, or they may feel like, they really made a lot of changes. They still might not be perfect, but in their mind, they've made a lot of changes. Or they might pay a lot of the bills and really cover and, do a lot that they can to make the relationship work. And they feel like they're still getting no appreciation. They're getting no love. There's no, small things like meals, or there's no small things like little things made easy for them. That just doesn't happen. And because of that, they feel justified in their response to go off and cheating. Again, I will say to them, did you communicate this? Chances are they'll say no. So the main things men say is the appreciation, attraction, and the intimacy, but the underlying reason is because he's not a good communicator. So always, as a woman, if you want to have a good relationship, make sure you choose a man who's very good at communicating his needs. He makes it very clear what he accepts and what he doesn't accept. Therefore, you know what could trigger his infidelity. He said to you very clearly, look, I need intimacy. I really can't handle years or months without it. At least okay, this is where he stands, and if I don't do it, chances are he might, be very dissatisfied. At least the man that doesn't say anything and doesn't explain his needs and just accepts the unacceptable, he's the one that you actually need to watch out for more, okay? Because they build up resentment and they might do a nonsense behind your back. So make sure that you do pick a man that is an effective communicator. Now, the next thing to understand about men is a lot of the time they stay with their partners out of shame and guilt rather than out of love and affection. And what I mean by that is some men just for some reason feel super guilty about leaving their wife, or they feel super, super shameful about breaking up their home. They don't want to do it. They just feel like there's some shame attached to it. Maybe they had a mother that came from a broken home and they learned not to ever upset a woman because their mum was kind of always a victim, and they learned that. But they have this shame and guilt. So what they will do is they'll never end the relationship, no matter what. They will stay in the relationship regardless of whether they're happy, they're not happy, maybe because they came from a broken home and they don't want to create another broken home. They stay regardless. The problem with men that do that is then they start to live a secret life behind their wife's back because they aren't there for the right reasons. They're not actually there because they love you and want to make this work. It's because they feel guilty about letting you down, or because they might feel shameful about breaking up the home and then the kids are in a separate environment, so on and so forth. So their commitment is based more on their lack of bravery and authenticity rather than out of love. So that's why, you need to be careful and make sure that you're not selecting somebody who is choosing you out of guilt and because he's wasted so much of your time, maybe you've been together for so long, and who actually wants to be with you, okay? And again, that comes from effective communication. Now, another thing I've noticed about men who, in my practice of working with lots of men and marriages and so on and so forth and couples, is something men experience that they don't really talk about is how often they can get jealous of their own kids. And what I mean by this is obviously not on in a way like, oh, I'm jealous of my kid in a competitive way, but they are used to having a woman's 100% attention. When the child comes, they tend to have 10% of her attention on a good day. And this is through no fault of hers. We're just programmed to just be totally obsessed and attached to our child, because if we don't, the child won't live without us. The child can live or die without their father, but they literally can't without their mother. They need, biologically, we're evolved for them to be completely invested in us and us in them. So the woman naturally navigates all of her attention to the child. The man in that situation, now, some men will really just hold your hand in the parenting and get stuck in. Other men will miss the relationship they had with you, and they don't know how to communicate that. So instead, they just start to feel very lonely in their marriage. And the other thing that men experience is the child isn't so attached to them in the beginning stages. The child is just their mums. So they kind of come home and the house is just basically used to be their safe place, but now it's just the mum and the baby's home, and they just happen to live there, and they start to build some resentment. My advice would always be is they may not say it, but chances are they do miss the relationship that you guys used to have. They probably really miss it. They might not say it because they know that it sounds insensitive to say, where's my kisses and where's my cuddles and blah, blah. They know that sounds stupid. So you, as the new mother, if and when you can, try and make time for your connection, only to save your marriage. I understand it. You're so overwhelmed and you're so overworked. I completely understand. The last thing you want to do is like hold your husband's hand. He should be an adult about it, but he's not. Yeah, I know what he should be doing. He should just be like, suck it up for a year or two, but they don't. That's all I can tell you. They don't. So the better thing to do is, if and when you can, particularly if you have support from friends and family that can help you with the child rearing, try and make dedicated one-to-one time with your partner to prevent that resentment building up. Try and make time for intimacy. Try and make time for affection. Try and make time for it. I know it's difficult, but it will really help your marriage in the long run. Okay? Now, the other thing I've learned in my time of working with men is if he's not sleeping with you, he's sleeping with somebody. And I mean that, I really mean that. I'll be honest with you, but not all, this is obviously not every single time, but there is something that I've learned with men is that their drive for intimacy doesn't actually decrease with age. It doesn't go anywhere. So when you've had kids and you're too tired, and as you've aged and you've decreased your desire, theirs hasn't actually decreased. So if they're not really looking for it with you, some men are, they just kind of get accustomed to it and they don't care. But majority of men, they are either, watching too much pornography or they've met somebody. This is particularly the case if you are the one initiating all of the sexual contact and they don't. In other cases where you don't initiate any, they might just become passive because they don't want to, they'll feel bad for breaking your boundaries. Some men are like that. But if you are initiating intimacy and you are getting rejected as a woman, it's either they're not attracted to you, but even when you're not attracted, you should have urges. There's men that do it with other men in prison because they've got an urge. So if they are doing that, clearly they're designed to release that energy somehow. So it's unlikely because he's so stressed at work, or it's unlikely because he's not attracted to you at all. It's more likely that he's either indulging in too much pornography or he's met somebody else. Don't let this slide. I'm not saying become accusatory, but just don't dismiss this and don't accept this. Look into what the real reason is. And if they say, oh, I'm just so stressed with work, I'm so stressed with that, intimacy is a stress release for men. It's a build-up of tension that it actually helps release the tension. So that doesn't make entire sense. And if they just say, oh, I just don't need it anymore, and you've been so disrespectful and that's the reason. Like I said to you, men will sleep with other men in prison. You think that they're respectful to each other? Do you think that's out of respect? They do it because they've got an urge and they can't control themselves. So that's how much they crave this. So it's likely that they're finding alternative routes to release themselves. Please Be mindful of this. Don't ignore this in your marriage. And if you are a man that's rejecting your wife, it is super, super unfair if you are finding your relief in another partner or in pornography or something like that, and yet you're expecting your partner to beg you for intimacy. It's just super unfair. So try not to do this. It's a real deal breaker in your marriage. Okay, so don't do that.